Good morning, beloved ones. I'm grateful that you're here with us, and I pass over to our beloved Ia for our opening, for our blessing. Grateful to see you.
Thank you, Brenda. Omi tutu le tutana tutu tutu la roye. Ajabalo run, ajabalo fina, ajabalo demari, ajabobo eku and bilese lo demari badatron. Ago egun kiki egungun, eguni kurana, feo wo kuo quiqui, o dasabo fulewo. Eguni kubata bango egun de bia ba faturile, egun ashide, ashea ekuba bawa. As our elder from last time reminded us, the ancestors always come first. We give acknowledgments to our elders, to our ancestors, acknowledging we stand upon their shoulders and ask them to continue to lift us up and maneuver us through these next waters in which we are going through, especially on this conference today. Ago eshu okwen, ajibike aruru jasoguni, sela fajibini, elete bafo baroye, e biati ashe aikubawa. Eshuo elegbaraye, Eshuo elegbaraye, elegbara moforibale, elegbara go baba. We ask that you remove the obstacles this day for us to have this conference as we investigate what we do with whiteness. Whiteness is a purity, it's an essence that cleanses, holds the essence of things in which to come. Unfortunately, whiteness also takes on an onus of situations in which we may not necessarily like to see happen. So it'll be interesting when we ask that you open up our eyes, you open up our ears, our hearts, and our minds as we investigate today. What in the heck do we do with whiteness? I do pray I share. Angoya, Obiri Shango, Adelie Rara Fun, Ashe, forgive me, I'm so covered with stuff today, so excited. Angoya, Obiri Shango, Adelie Rara, Obori, Ori Risha, take a bay, Ashe, Aikubawa, Aloya de, Iwa, Shekeshe. A lawyer day, iwa shake shake. I'll go lawyer, oh yeah, shade, oh lawyer day. I'll go please use your winds to blow away the uncertainties, the indecisions, the misjustice and unelevated consciousness that is around us this day so that we can open up our minds, we can open up our hearts, we can open up our personas to take in new information and help elevate it to another level. And finally, today, I want to give acknowledgments to Yemanja. Yemanja say su. I say su Yemanja. Yemanja say su. I say su Yemanja. Yemanja lo. I'll go, Mama. Please continue to cool our hearts, open up our minds, let the vastness of your oceans, your water, clear away all of the debris so that we can open up ourselves to take this day to another level of understanding, appreciation for ourselves, each other, and the work that is yet to be done, in addition to that work that has already been done. And with that, I say, I do pray. Ashe, Ashe, Asheo, To. Thank you.
Thank you, Iya Kulala. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good night, good everything. Feel free to send your What do we do about whiteness? What a question. Well, y'all, don't worry, we got it figured out. Dr. Bayo Akomalafe is going to heal us all of our whiteness today. Just step right this way into the tent, into the particle accelerator. He's gonna fix it all for you. You don't have to do a thing, just sit back and relax. No, okay, no, sorry, that simple. The particle accelerator is broken today. Oh, so this is gonna be a little harder. It's gonna take a little longer. Might have to do a little more. but we will find our way. Thank God we will find our way and don't have the answers presented to us. Thank you for being in the mess with me. David is not here today, as you all know. He was paused by the death of two loved ones in his family. So we send some love and some support to him and to his people where he is. And we look forward to hearing from him at another point. And we learned from him, I would say one of the starting points of our time together today, which is to be paused by death, because whiteness in its essence is a refusal to acknowledge death, a refusal to acknowledge that which needs to fall apart and decay and return to the earth. So we say thank you, David, for reminding us to be paused by death. I'm calling in from Wichita, Kansas today, a different place than last time. Home of the Wichita people. I'm also here to be paused by death to bury an elder, the grandfather of my partner Bronte, Jack Pons, who I just want a presence today as one of the teachers who's here with us, who in this society would have been diagnosed with schizophrenia because he was Black. If he was white, he would have been diagnosed with something like bipolar or manic depression. So we notice the ways that there is not capacity in our society to acknowledge the healers and the teachers and the people who are living transdimensionally with us. And there was a moment when we were traveling from the mortuary to the cemetery to lay him in the ground, where in Kansas, everyone pulls over when there's a caravan traveling to the cemetery. And so I was just so struck by the way everyone stopped. Everyone pulled to the side of the road, not knowing who this man was or what he was holding, but just paused. So grateful for that pause. And as a way of beginning, I want to, for myself, dedicate the merits of this day to Jack. And I welcome you to dedicate the merits of this class to someone in your life who has passed, who has been a teacher to you of how to live in more than one time, how to be in more than one place. And feel free to just use the chat to put their name there so that we can all witness and behold and love that person with you. And we're gonna keep moving today. So as you send that in the chat, I'm gonna pass it over to the care team to take us a little further.
Thank you, my beloved ones. Thank you for, oh, Alandria, yeah, seeing the names. So I'm gonna just start us by calling directions, and then we'll move into the next piece. And I'll just read briefly. And I'll invite you, if you feel called, to read where you are, even though you're on mute and you're far away, that we can call it in together. Or even just to give your hands to the directions. Spirit of the East, house of light, land of the rising sun, of air and the winds that blow across the land, and of open horizons, of the gratitude for new beginnings each day. May wisdom dawn in us so we may see all things clearly. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Spirit of the East. My page down. Spirit of the North, house of the night, place of quiet stillness of cave and deep earth, place of sacred rains and gratitude for the knowledge and blessings that have come to us with time. May wisdom ripen in us so we may know all from within. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Spirit of the North. Spirit of the West, house of transformation, land of the setting sun and autumn's whisper, of sacred winds and of insights gifted to us. Bless us with peace which follows a fruitful life. May wisdom be transformed into right action so we may do what must be done. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Spirit of the West. Spirit of the South, we especially call on you because you're the direction of fire. House of eternal sun, place of abundance, fertility, passion, fire, and inspiration, whose warm breath reminds us of summer days. Ignite our hearts with love. May right action reap the harvest so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Spirit of the South. Sacred below, Spirit of Mother Earth, you support us each day, welcoming our roots deep into your heart. You nurture ground and guide us, giving us sustenance and support. Help us to give thanks always for your bounty and to compost what no longer serves us. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Spirit of Mother Earth. Winton unseen. Spirit of Father Sky, sacred above, place where our ancestors, beloved ones dwell. May your blessings come to us now. The countless stars of the night remind us that you are vast and majestic beyond all of our knowing or understanding. Your light shines upon the earth both day and night, guiding our steps. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. Please join us, Father Sky. And finally, for our beautiful, sacred, divine heart, the center of our being, the center where all the directions meet. Spirit of the sacred divine within each one of us, place of union, love, and reverence. We are grateful for this gift of life and for the love that guides our way. We humbly ask for your blessing as we gather. We open our hearts and join with all of our relations in love. It is begun.
Thank you, Brenda. I want to say to everyone that we are collectively, as a care team, inviting you to gather so that we can enact a sacred healing release ceremony. The paper with the words which Linda has printed, they come from the option for grief and rage to be transmogrified. And she has printed them, and they are going to be burned as part of a release ceremony. So the paper with the words which Linda has printed, just to be ritual educational, is the symbolic transference for each of the disclosures, confessions, as well as exercises of feeling that need to be released into the world. And our invitation to you is, as she holds each piece of paper to the camera, that we blow 3 times. And we invite you to do this in order to support the participant whose words and intentions are confidentially contained in words, and to transfer, to support the transfer of any negative energies or bad feelings to this object and these words so that they will be released. The burning of each paper is a physical act of relinquishment. This is the second step to the release ceremony. And this is done usually with the help of 1 or more major elements. In our case, the 4 of us on the care team, Eileen, Brenda, Linda, and myself, Komen, we will work with fire today to burn. And after the paper has been rendered to ash, we will take the responsibility to release the ash to the water, or to be scattered on the earth, or to be brought into the air. so that the negative energy can be composted and redirected to another use. And just to clarify one more word, by transference, I simply mean the migration through actionable intention from one form to another. So for instance, the grief and rage page, the invitation read, quote unquote, "This is a place to express your feelings about whatever you would like, whether it's related to the We Will Dance with Mountains course or related to events in your personal life or in the world," end quote. So transferring feelings to words and inputting them into a form which gets printed and burned and subsequently dispersed to water, earth, or air is simply an example of actionable intention. Thank you. That wind is really working.
Is that the last one? And so we thank you, Grandfather Fire. We give gratitude to Divine Spirit and the elements of earth, wind, fire, and air, as well as our ancestors. We are grateful for the release of anger, rage, or whatever else is being released. These things were a part of our journey, but they no longer serve us and are not necessary now. Thank you, sweet spirit, for allowing us to set new intentions and explore new ways. Anytime you feel the tug of old habits, relationships, or beliefs you released in this fire ritual, visualize the flames consuming them once again and continue to embody the feeling of freedom from removing these old blockages. And so we close this sacred space, prepared to go forward with renewed energy. And so it is. Ashe.
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you so much, care team. I wanted to just mention that these are the people that are on call for this live session today. So if you do need emotional support at any time, you can private chat to Eileen, Coleman, and Linda, and Brenda too. She's not officially on call, but she's here with us always holding our space. And I want to especially thank Linda for getting up and stewarding this fire for us this morning. Thank you so much, Linda. And we'll pass it on. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for blowing. I saw people blowing. That was beautiful to see. Maybe there's a sense in which global warming doesn't just apply to carbon emissions. Maybe things are stuck because we haven't found a way to release them, and we have no rituals of release. So taking the slow time to lead us into this blowing across pixels and across space-time. Thank you. Thank you for doing that with us. I want to just invite us now to play, okay? Yoruba people always expect during a ceremony, even one as serious and important as a burial, there's always the expectation of party rice. There's always music afterwards, because death isn't negative. Death isn't a sore spot in the universe. Death is part of the mystery of how things gain, become finer, take on new shapes. So I'm going to invite us to play now, but I want to just situate this invitation properly. I don't know if this applies to me alone. It's my experience. But I don't know if anyone else, feels sometimes alien. If you feel, if you look at your fingers and you say, it's 5, I have 5. Why 5 and not 23? I don't know. I've had moments when I feel strange and things feel strange. And I wonder why I have one head instead of 10 or something. Like I don't want to call it an out of body experience, since that is already taken, but it's almost like I'm viewing myself through some mirror, and things feel strange. I see the tautness of my skin and the gradations and the hair on my arms. And I wonder, why? Maybe it's nerd stuff, but I think you know a bit about what I'm talking about, don't you? There's a beautiful thinker called Baruch Spinoza, 17th century guy. And he had an important question that I want to share with you. The question is, what does the body do? Do we even know what the body is capable of? What affections, capacities, capabilities? What do we know about the body for real? I'm sure he didn't say for real in the 17th century, but I'm sure it was right in there. For real, what do we know about the body? And I think this exploration of bodies is at the heart of what we're doing here. And I see Linda is dancing. So what I want to invite us to do is this. During the week, I asked everyone to listen to their environments, go around, pick up stuff, or be picked up by stuff. Listen to what wants to be part of a small experiment, an assemblage of objects, of things, feathers, whatever, clothes, pens, papers, duct tape, and bring it with you to this session. Now I'm going to be asking you to go into breakout sessions. And in that breakout session, here's what's going to happen. You're going to ask, what can the body do? And respond to that in this way. You're going to select together, I think there'll be 10 in your session or thereabout. You're going to select a candidate in your breakout session together through some kind of democratic means that I will not impose upon you, because that would be undemocratic. You would select a candidate among you that will be mutated. And all of you were being invited to play with that mutation to help create an alien. That is the person that will be mutated, or persons. It could be 2 if you have time for that. I would recommend 1 so that you can give that creation your focus. You're going to be inviting that person to put on that on the body, those items. I don't know how you want to create an alien. Duct tape around the face, feathers sticking out of the ears. The instruction is to create or co-create an alien. And you'll have ample slow time to do this. But this is not just an invitation to really play with bodies. It's an invitation to touch our anxieties about our own bodies, and to touch all the tentacles, all the ideologies that are already involved in the worlding and the embodiment of my bodies. And I say my bodies because I have many bodies. My Black skin is already a historical conversation about what it means to be human. And it means, for me personally, that anytime I travel through an airport, I will be pulled aside 70% of the time because of the way that I show up. That's part of my anxiety about the capabilities of my body. Now, I'd like you to think about those anxieties, your hopes and yearnings, your prayers, your ideologies, your convictions, and put that into this body that you're co-creating. And as this body is mutating in front of you, I would like those of you who are not mutating to tell the story of this body. Write it down. Write about what this body can do, how this body is a remanifestation of justice, how this body queers the world in a way that has not been anticipated yet, how this body changes everything, right? Okay, so we're creating aliens together, and we are writing the stories of this alien. You can respond, and then when we come back, this is really important, when we come back to plenary, when we come back all together, some aliens will be showcased, you know, with the faces and everything. Make it as strange as you can, as you possibly can. Some aliens will be showcased, and then we'll be inviting members of that group, you know, to share very briefly what they've written, what this body can do, what this body is all about. Okay, that's basically it. Erin, Jordy, did I miss out a point here? You want to help me out?
Well, I see a lot of face touching, a lot of confusion on the screen. So let's take a minute if anyone has a question they want to ask.
No, the alien shouldn't do an exercise. The alien is mutating. The witnesses around the alien will do the writing, will tell us what this body is doing and becoming capable of. Yes.
And we use the alien, the person who's the alien, we use their materials, not
Yes,
mine.
not yours. Yes, you're basically recommending and say, hey, why don't you put that duct tape right up your nose? That might be a way of addressing colonization. How about you fart and you capture your fart in a bottle and you bring it with you to the, whatever. Let's explore the strangeness of our bodies. And everyone that is a witness to this mutation are scribes to this transmogrification, to this transmutation of bodies. You come back with your scripts and share it with the plenary. All right.
And how long will people be going out, Bio?
We're going for 30 minutes. We're just a little bit out of time, but everything is out of time. What do you know? That's indigenous wisdom there. That's you.
Why don't we begin and people will trickle back? I hesitate to call on people because maybe you're not actually dressed up. And gosh, I would hate to call you out on some outfit that you really liked. So why don't you just unmute yourself? And it'd be great if someone who isn't dressed up, but who was in your group can help to describe you, help to bring you to light for us. And don't be afraid to be playful with it. See how far your imagination can extend into who your alien is. And let us know a little bit about what the process was like, what it took for you as a group to be able to go somewhere together, because it's not so easy always to synchronize our imaginations, especially on Zoom. So would love to just have a few people share. And yes, Erin is asking if you can raise your hand, which is, gosh, how do you do that, Erin? You want to just let people know? You go to participants.
You go to participants and then a little button at the bottom of the participant list that says raise hand. But I already see 4 or 5 raised hands here. So maybe I'll just spotlight and then the people in that aliens group can describe the alien.
Oh.
Okay. Eve, are you there? All right, so there were 2 of us. It was me and Eve and Sharon. But we worked really beautifully together, I thought, and it was very fluid. And this creature has lots of really cool qualities, which I don't want to describe all by myself, but I will if I have to.
You start.
Okay. This creature has porous skin that can let whatever, like specific things in or out. It has a decision about what comes into its skin and what comes out.
You're muted, Wald.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
No, no.
Maybe you have to spotlight both at the same time, Erin, so that we can both see and hear.
Am I still muted?
Oh, there you are. You're back.
You're good.
Did you guys hear any of that?
Yeah, we heard a little
We
bit.
got,
Okay.
we got the porous part.
Okay. It changes color at will, kind of like an octopus. And it has a very soft gelatinous skin that's very gentle and very lovely, but it has quills that can come in and out of its skin if it needs to defend itself.
What I loved about it is it communicates by changing its materials. And one of the things it told us is it has like a bib by its neck. And when it enlarges the bib, it means it's hungry.
Oh, it also has an eye that is made of multiple materials that sort of changes depending on its environment. It can be liquid or solid. It can perceive heat or perceive light. I also posited that it communicates in grunts and burps.
That's important. Thank you. Thank you, being of softness and quills and burps. Who else would like to share? I'm seeing a lineup here on the side of some beautiful creatures. I'd love if Amanda could be spotlighted. And whoever is Amanda's chaperone, human chaperone.
I believe I'm Amanda's chaperone. Amanda has risen from the earth, and she has perceptors on her, above her fur at the top, as well as spores. Like the fungal kingdom and certain mushrooms, she's just the fruit that we can see of a network of beings that are beneath our radar or outside of our ability to see. She has capacity to perceive what is decaying when things are dying and rotting and being broken down, and she's highly perceptive in understanding what is transmuting. And this creature is sensing and feeling with strands that come from all different parts of her body. I think those are the main points about this one to share. If anyone else from my group wants to add, you
Wow. Amanda came prepared.
could. She was a joy to work with.
Yes. Yeah, I'm getting death doula vibes from Amanda. The perception of seeing the decay through whatever veil is cast before us. So thank you, Amanda, for that important work, and to your group for helping to see you. Who else? Who else? There are so many good ones. Does one of the monsters just want to unmute themselves if you feel called to verbalize?
I do.
I do.
I do. We do.
Okay.
I do.
I
do too.
Can they all do? Can we get Nina up
Cacophony.
there? The cacophony is with us. Can we get Nina there?
Me too.
Let's see. Let's get one more. Erin, you pick one more.
I unlock you.
It seems like the double spotlight isn't working for people, so I'm just going to spotlight one alien at a time. Yeah.
Great.
My verbalization was beautifully created by our group and Juliet. We had nominated to express what's happening.
Yeah, I'll just read from what was written. His body is double-headed, quadrupled eyes with two of them looking upside down, an arm entangled in its life price, a body with more elements but less flexibility. Perhaps it can see more but hear less. It can continue to move but has to hold its own head and half move the other arm. Also got a tail, but full of history and contradictions. Is it enabling or disabling? That's it.
Wow, amazing. And the roller chair seems to be part of it too. Thank you. And Juliet, if I ever make a documentary, I might need your voice as narration. It's so beautiful. Okay, let's do a couple more. Ina is really drawing my attention. I don't know about you all.
Nafiti too.
Our group would love to go. I think it's Dinah.
Diana, hi. So this is our beautiful alien. So it's a shape-shifting alien, and it's a body that can merge and demerge from the forest floor. The feathers on its face filter the air so it can eat, and then what it eats comes through the leaves in its hair to feed other beings. The pipe cleaner antennas that it has sends the emotions of trees around it, and also has the power to send out love. Some of the marks on its face are the wounds of injustice that it has had through its life. Yeah, and I'm not sure if I missed anything out, rest of my group.
I just want to point out that when I came to this land, I was already considered an alien. I have an alien number when I came in this land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps these descriptions that are given to us aren't so far away from this exercise. So thank you for playing with us. I wonder, because we're needing to transition, Erin, can you just take us on a tour?
Okay.
Well, can
Yeah,
you
I'll
just
take
take
you on
us
a
on
tour.
a tour? Just flash through them. We have to move.
Yeah, I wish
sorry
we
we
could
can't
just
get
do
them
this
all.
all day. All right, here we go. So here is Tao. Oh, Morgan has an important.
Wow.
Amazing, amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh, in the back. Okay, super creepy. I like it.
Okay. Whoa. There's
Oh.
Darshana.
The egg beater planet. I've heard of them. Oh, yes. In the midst of collapse.
Oh, okay. And this is Phil.
Straight up. Direct.
Amazing.
Reflective.
And here is Alex, although he might not know he's being spotlighted right now.
I think he can taste us. We will pray for you, Alex. Oh, double up now. Okay.
Thank you.
I have no
Sorry,
words for this one.
This is, and then we have Nefhatiti here. This is probably my favorite so far, I have to say. I don't know, look at that thing with the pedicure. Oh my goodness. All right, just two more here.
Oh, shoot, it's
Here
there.
is
Aquatic.
Elise.
What's happening in the hand? Is that a faucet nozzle? Okay. Oh.
They're drop knobs. This is the drop knob alien. I put it in the chat if you want to read our poem from the group.
Amazing.
Yes, please.
Okay, and then Sabra is here.
I'm getting Berlin vibes.
Okay, I'm
This
going to
is
move a little
excellent.
more quickly here. This is Srinija. Amazing.
Planet shoe face. I love it.
Trina.
Oh.
Evelyn. Chelsea. Nice.
Oh, yes. With the metallic armpits. That's an important element.
For when BO is really a great threat on our planet. And I think Tanis, I don't know, I can't remember if we did Tanis.
Yeah, I just had my hand up too. I was the one that was going to read. We only had a screenshot of our alien, so I don't know if there's a way to show our screenshot or not from Veronique. But
Oh, we'll
if
probably
not,
just send that around afterwards.
okay. I can describe what it was though, and it was sort of like how we described the painting the other day. We had a left eye love, ribbon tongue, right vision seed, dead leaf dribble, face tracing, ear match, tunnel vision alien. That's what we had. And then we'll have a picture of that. I'll type that in with the photo.
We're here too. My group did a lot of work, so we're here.
What shield?
Yes, we're here. We did too much work for you not to say this. We did too much work.
Okay, well, we got to move on. So if people know how to do a screenshot of yourself, it's Shift Command 3 if you have a Mac. I don't know about Windows, but take a picture of yourself and send it to us. And we will make sure people witness your alienhood because it's important.
along with the stories as well, the stories that have been
Yes.
told about the aliens. Yes, yes. Ah, thank you so much, everyone. It's shocking what we're doing with Zoom. Um, and I'd just like to say this very quickly, that there is a sense in which we are aliens. We are constantly being shaped by the world around us, constantly being remolded by feathers and vestigial flags and American flags draped on our, on our bodies and stuff like that. We're never as coherent or as put together as modernity thinks we are. So I'd like to just offer a very brief prompt. I was going to tell a story around this, but I'll save that for later. That think about all the ways that you are not yourself. Think about all the ways you are strange. And think about all the ways you are external to yourself, if you will. Never quite appearing in the ways that habitual forms of perception might represent you. And just write about it. Just, if you will, write. There's no sharing around that now, but you can share it in the Mighty Networks group. Modernity has a way of thinking about the self, as Jordi and I were discussing recently, as a steady stream of selfhood that is interrupted once in a while by an event, when we become, when we step outside of ourselves, maybe we're angry or something. Those moments when we are not ourselves are usually pathologized. We're usually given a bad name. But I want you to write, if you will. Write as if those were moments when the world interpenetrates you, when the world mounts you or possesses you. Write as if you were porous, as if identity is already riven with cracks and fissures and fault lines and ruptures and discontinuities. And share it with us. Thank you to all the aliens. I hope you have safe passage here on Earth. And I hope you find us interesting as you move around the world. At this point in time, I'd like us to maybe just take a deep breath. And I will say a few things about identity and whiteness. What the alien teaches me personally is that we live in excess of ourselves. Modernity tries to situate the self within the self. You're fully yourself and no other self. But there is a sense in which we need other bodies to navigate the complexity of the world. And we actually use other bodies to do that. We are not as encased or as solitary or as independent as has been told us. So we are alien, and we're constantly being reconfigured again and again. So let me tell you a story about someone that I recently met, well, via the internet, not in real life. Karen, could you put the image of the Abanza on the screen? Thank you. Okay. Sure. This brother's name is Emery Nwazulu Diabanza. And he's an activist. He's, I think he's about 41 years old. He's from Congo, grew up in Kinshasa. I did some of my growing up in Kinshasa as well. And he's an activist. He's an activist whose activism is premised almost entirely on the politics of restitution and reparations. What does that mean? Let me give you some context. So colonization wasn't just a transference of bodies across the Atlantic. It wasn't just the installation of worldviews. It wasn't just the sterilization of landscapes. It wasn't just the extraction of ancestors and progeny. It was also downright dirty. It was stealing. There was a lot of stealing that happened, especially in a country like Umwazulu-Diabanza's Congo, which is colonized by Belgium. In those times, I think the 19th century, 18th century, colonial powers would literally take artworks, pilfer that and take it across the Atlantic, sell it to rich benefactors, and they would most likely end up in museums. In 1897, for instance, the British sent their army, some soldiers, to kill the king of Benin. And they took the Benin bronzes, famous, really famous artwork, which is now in the Louvre, the British Museum, and museums across the world. And there has been a politics, a desire to have them returned to us, returned to Africa. But there is a sense in which these museums are saying no. They're just like finders keepers, we're not giving you back. Recently, Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France, allowed for some of these things to be returned, but they haven't honored those commitments. In these museums are pieces of history, pieces of communities that have been lost across time. So this brother here literally goes to these museums, and he does something really strange. So I have a small video, it's just 59 seconds, and I just want you guys to watch to see what he does. Karen, could you do that for me? I think we need to pray more to the gods of Zoom. See if they would. Okay. From the beginning. Yes. Is your volume on? Is this Sharon? Good.
Donc on est venu récupérer ce qui nous appartient. Je suis venu répondre ce qui a été volé, ce qui a été pillé en Afrique. Au nom de notre peuple, au nom de notre mère patrie d'Afrique, au nom de tous ceux et toutes celles qui ont été violés, qui ont été massacrés, qui ont été humiliés, dont qui ont été brisés. Où est votre conscience? Savez-vous combien de femmes ont été violées? Savez-vous combien d'enfants ont été assassinés? Je rentre à la maison. Je rentre à la maison avec ce patrimoine qui a été volé, pillé dans notre chère et mère patrie d'Afrique. Pouvez-vous répondre à ces questions? Oui. Par quels moyens le musée de Louvre a appris ça? Des milliers d'enfants. L'Afrique entière a été détruite. L'Occident de manière générale a volé. L'Occident de manière générale a volé.
Non, je vous ai pas filmé.
Non, je le filme lui. Détruit de peuples entiers. Détruit des nations entières. Détruit de peuples. Détruit.
Thank you. Thank you. That's Umwazulu-Diabanza doing what it does best, infiltrating museums across the world and taking it back. That's what he does. He attempts to take it back. He has never succeeded, though. He's never succeeded. He's under arrest right now in France and has just been arraigned before a court in Marseille, and is likely to be there for some time. Now, I was watching one of these videos. I've watched many videos of Diabanza, because I love him so much. And under one of these videos, the comments in that YouTube section, someone said this, that, yeah, I mean, if Africans had these artifacts, they wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. I mean, it's likely to be lost, and it's not likely to be as preserved as it is. So we're actually doing you guys a favor. I don't like to comment on the on YouTube or the internet. I have better things to do with my time, but I like to respond here in two ways. That comment does not take into account, or the commenter does not take into account the years of violence and destruction and incapacitation that rendered those communities listless. Without your totems, without your guides, those were not just pieces of art, they were spirits, ancestors. And to take them away is to take something deeply sacred, translate it into something much more intelligible to the modern. That commenter did not account for that. But more importantly, and this is a more nuanced response to that comment, where did we get the idea that if it's not preserved, it's not worth it? That it mustn't die, that it's not valuable if it's not preserved forever, that it needs to be preserved in a museum, that art is only accessible when it's seen, not when it's remembered, not when it's shared in community in a different way. That's what I'd have loved to say to that commenter. And that's what I'm sharing with us right now. But like most things, there's a third consideration here, a hidden one. And it's probably best seen than spoken about, but I will speak about it. Karen, could you go back to the video? This is evidence of something strange happening here. Go back to the video if you will.
It will take me a second because I didn't
In
know
a second,
I want
okay.
to pull it up again.
Okay. That's about 20 seconds now.
Okay. I underestimated.
Okay, so when I say play, I just want everyone to train your eyes on the first few seconds of the screen. I'm just about to show you something. This is going to blow your mind. There, stop. There, stop. Pause it. Yes. Did you guys see it? Did everyone see it? No? No? Okay. I'll tell you what it is. It moved. The artifact moved. What? What are you talking about, Bayo? Of course it moved. You lifted it up from its perch. It moved, yes? What's so fascinating about that? Well, I don't care how it moved. My point here is this figure and its movement, especially by unauthorized hands, in molecular ways unsettled the paradigm of the museum. Now, the Abanza may not be a successful thief. He may not be a successful activist, but the generative insufficiency of his work will not be downplayed, especially when we notice that just the movement of the artifact, even if for a brief moment away from its perch, away from the place that had been assigned to it, is a moment of fugitivity. That something happened there, an error, the unruly errancy in the algorithm of the museum. Something happened. We can go back and watch it again. We can go back and watch it again. Just go back and just see it lift away. It might not impress you as much as it impresses me, but just take a look. All right, pause it here. That's it. You can come back to plenary now. Just its movement away from that perch, for me, is an upsetting of the modern order of things. Now, that might not be impressive to you. You might say, yeah, that doesn't really, I don't really see the potency of that. So maybe the next thing I'm about to say might impress you then, because I think that's really scandalous, that something we fix in place moves away from its place. In April 2020, one of the most serious publications in the world, The Economist, published a shocking essay. a report by a journalist, and it was titled, "Is the British Museum Haunted?" And it was about artifacts stolen and what they're doing to the museums. And the focus was on the British Museum, and it's about drops in temperature, doors that have been bolted around these pilfered objects, you know, surprisingly opened by something, movements in the night that the security agents could not account for. Even veterans scared of moving into museums at night, walking through thousands of doors to see if these things are in place. One of my most interesting accounts is about a security guard walking past a Congolese object, the sculpture of a dog, a two-headed dog, much like our alien here. And he felt an overwhelming desire to point at this object. And so he slowly lifts his hand and points at it, and the alarms go off. Maybe a coincidence. And so he brings his brother the next day, and all of this is in that beautiful article, beautifully written and researched. He brings his brother the next day, and the brother lifts up his hand as well and points at the object, at this dog, and the alarms go off again. This article, I would encourage you to read it. It's replete with scary stories about objects moving away from their assignment, from their assigned perches in the museum. And this is what I want to point out here. That the Abanza's work allows me to theorize what I call restless bodies. Restless bodies. What's a restless body or a restless body scenario? A restless body scenario is when an object objects to its fixity, when the stolen steals away, right? Or when what we have assigned and designated is never fully contained or appropriated or extracted from. It's something allows it to move away from extraction, from it being fully owned. So here's what I want to point out here. That in a very, very powerful sense, the accusation of cultural appropriation is ethically justified in this right to say that these things have been stolen. I know for certain that the Nigerian government is trying to get back the Benin bronzes, which are called masterpieces of art. No one understands how these things were produced. But the assignment or the accusation of cultural appropriation actually works within the same conceptual order that gives meaning to the museum. So I want to be very, very slow as I explain this, that to say these things have been stolen is right within a conceptual framework. And our feelings about that are also justified. When we think about all that has been lost, it's justified. But there is another container of assumptions and understandings and experiments and questions. And that's the restless body aspect of what we're talking about today. That goes beyond cultural appropriation, that says to say this is cultural appropriation is right, but it's not sufficient to know what is happening. That there are other things happening here as well. And those are what I call restless bodies, when bodies spill, away from their algorithms, when they move, when they disturb the gravity of things. What kinds of questions are possible when we think through restless bodies? What does identity become in a world that spills and is open and is porous? A world that makes us alien just by touching us. I want to hold the tensions of these two. On one end, the accusation of cultural appropriation. And yet it is part of the museum, because even though you're against something, you can be very well entangled to it. You can be against or in opposition to something and still be part of what makes that something possible. You can still be part of its framework, part of its body, part of what gives it sense and value and meaning. And this is some of the very frightening ways that that activism will sometimes feed the world that it's trying to leave behind. But there is another sense in which things are doing things on their own, way beyond what humans can do. And then we can ask questions then. What if that two-headed dog is decolonizing or upsetting the colonial order? What is the world doing? What other forms of doing are afoot right now that we're not paying attention to? What is this body capable of doing? Okay. We'll take a break. Is this time for a break? Before we
Time for a break.
Yeah, so let's take a break and then we'll get back and then I'll continue with
We'll do
our
5
dear
minutes.
sister. Yes, 5 minutes and then we'll be back.
Yeah. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Yes, I am so happy that you are here. Sarah Nahar is one of my greatest teachers, I would say, especially in the way that I have seen you lead a space, invite people into more of themselves, into the depth of themselves in a way that is prayerful, is rooted in truth, is rooted in dignity. For a long time, you were essential to the organizational leadership of Christian peacemaker teams. Now you're working on a PhD between religious studies and environmental studies, which you refuse the separation of those two within the academy. I see you again and again infiltrating the academy, infiltrating the powers that be, and just glitching them into something that can actually serve, can actually show up for people. So thank you for your care. Thank you for being here with us, and especially for your theology of the kaka, your theology of letting go, of release. So I would just love to welcome you to help us, please. Please help us release. Please help us be in our bodies, be present here before we go back into the talk. So I pass it off to you, my sister.
Thank you so much. It's good to see so many of you. And as I give a little bit of an introduction, if you would like to, try to clear out some space above that so you can reach up and so you can move forward and back. You might already have that in the space that you're at, and you actually might not need it depending on how much you want to do the embodied work that we're about to do. I've opened up this space behind me just to be as visible as possible, but you don't quite need that much. In thinking about regrouping, coming back here for our remaining hour, I wanted to invite us into a practice of generating the heat from within, clearing out heaviness and anxiety, and also the colonial tendencies of spread. So we're going to collect and do some work in our center. It's possible to do this without moving, but moving cosmically within our bodies. However, I'm going to just demonstrate it big with the body. Please modify for anything that feels really, really nourishing to you. We're also going to lubricate the joints a little bit. Yeah, getting it all soft and squirty as we make our way home. And Jordan mentioned I do work with the kaka. My work is in paying attention to defecatory justice, dealing with our shit, literally and metaphorically. So we're going to be doing some squatting. And our ancestors did this action all the time, but we don't do it as much because we have chairs. So if you are still on a chair or using a chair, that is also okay. Gratitude for chairs. But we will move through these experiments. This is an experiment in cleansing. And this comes from Iyengar yoga tradition. So I want to shout out Yoga with Avery in Albuquerque, who I learned this from. And I will be using the English terminology around it rather than Urbanasasana, Utkatasana, Malasana. But if you know those terms, that's what we're going to be moving through. I'd invite you to watch once before doing, and then feel free to do at your own pace. Here we go. You won't be able to see my head, but that's okay. Begin standing if you can. Feet planted firm if you wish. Raise your hands high. Plug your shoulders into the sockets, into your heart while stretching your hands up. From there, squeeze your ankles together, squeeze your knees together, squeeze your genitals, and begin to sit. Holding here, feeling the power of your center. Bending further, widening the feet as you can and as you wish into a squat. Releasing. Gathering up the energy back to what is called chair pose, actually being your own chair. And up. Feel that breath come in. And again, reaching up. Letting the feet stay wide this time, bending down. Feeling your lower back activate, moving to a squat. Slowly, if you'd like, shifting off of your heels onto the ground. Your pelvic floor anchoring you. And back up we go, gathering the power to stand. Use your hands if you want to or need to. Filling up, pausing. Again, up. Pulling in the energy. Down to that squat. Back onto the bum. Shifting legs up. Holding energy. Allowing your center to gather. Feet down, push up. We're almost done it all. And then you'll be able to do it all in your own time, breathing through in-breath and out-breath at every station, noticing, strengthening, and over, and back up. Maybe here, maybe here, maybe here. Hold it. Rising. That is the whole thing. Do as much or as little as you wish to do, as your body wishes to do, but gathering in the energy, rotating it around, allowing yourself to enter the challenge and difficulty. Maybe you just do this with your hands, but still use the center of your body to breathe in and out. Do that a couple more times. I will not be speaking, and there's no need to now look at the screen. One more round. Wherever you are, stop when you get to standing and wait for all the rest of us. I chose this practice with this level of intensity of physicality because sometimes when my mind and heart are stretched at the levels that they are in this course, I like to match it with the amount of physical intensity. That may not be your thing, but I at least wanted you to know why I chose to do it. You can feel free to private chat me if you have any feedback or ways that I can make that additionally accessible. May you all be well.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah, is there a way that we can follow your work, that we can stay in touch with how you're moving? Any links or any way that we might just be able to keep you in our lives, close to our hearts?
I suppose the best way would be that if you find yourself pooping at any time, if there is a receptacle that takes what you have shared and returns it to the earth in any way, remember to say thank you. Because we're working on transforming our systems so that they don't implode freshwater systems. And so if you just make sure to say thank you when you take a deuce, that would be a great way to stay connected. And I think I'm inviting networks too. I'll write my email.
Amen.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Pooping is activism. And I think someone wrote power to the poop, or power to the poople, which is just good. Thank you, sister.
People's Own Organic Power from Sean Schaffner, who's also a member of this course.
Say that again, Sarah. What are you referring to?
Sean often calls poop the people's own organic power.
Oh, right. Poop. Okay. People's own organic power. Yes. We should own our shit more often. Thank you, sister, for that. And to Jordy and Aaron for holding that space. Okay, guys, let's back from pooping, which we fondly call cacaing in our family. I think there is some synergy there with the terms we're using. Caca is what my daughter calls pooping, and I think I prefer caca. It's more at home for me. I wanted to start this last bit of our time together by acknowledging this. You see, let's face it, we're not here to figure everything out. we're not going to figure everything out in a final sense. Most of us, if not all of us, are here because we want to live well. It's just that living well is hard, in an entangled world, because there is no living that is not a living with. We don't just live independently, we live with ideologies, we live with historical struggles, we live with bacterial activisms, we live with compost heaps, we live with colonial trauma. So there's a lot, and especially in these times when the computational algorithms of social networks is an added complexity to how we live, it can be very difficult to make sense of this overwhelm. This course is not an invitation to get rid of the overwhelm. Making sanctuary is not about escaping overwhelm. It's not about changing the world in the sense of saving it. I don't think I have any desire to save the world. I used to. And now I just noticed the hubris there in thinking that we can save the world. I think more than just thinking about the world as being savable. We notice that even the very concept of the world is an imperial concept. As if the world, language fails me, as if something could be known in some totalizing way, as if edges are so fixed that they could be totally consumed. Well, we're here because we are colonized bodies, we're colonizer bodies, and we're everything in between. To be colonizer and to be colonized is to occupy an increasingly small space. And now most of us are, if not all of us, I believe that's the reason why you're here. Most of us are feeling this tightening, this shrinking circle. Anxieties are increasing, despair, disenchantment. Our activisms don't seem to know a way out. Making sanctuary is what happens when something penetrates the bubble of relationships that we've been encased or quarantined in. It's when an edge bursts open and something utterly inexplicably alien comes in, and we have to make sense of that. I want to speak about not just identity, but race and racialization and whiteness, and a theory of mine that I call transraciality. I don't think I can get through this without some notes. So I've actually taken notes. I don't like notes. I like to just riff and play it like jazz, but I think this time I need some backup because of the things that I really feel I want to get through and say. So let's go there. Keep in mind what we've just been talking about the alien, about identity as this riven place, never fully showing up. We'll speak more about that. And how sometimes behind labels, molecular shifts are happening, that the world is constantly deterritorializing itself behind our social practices of naming ourselves, which is the reason why I love that Indian proverb. Name the color, blind the eye. At the very moment we name ourselves, which is very important to do, we're taking certain risks that occludes other things from showing up. And let me get into it. I in the United States, when was I in the United States? Yeah, last, before the pandemic, I was almost always in the United States, teaching and traveling. And on one of those trips, I remember someone coming up to me and saying, I really, really, Bayo, I really love your accent. That I love your accent. And I said, oh, thank you. Thank you. Where did you learn how to speak English? And school. I spoke well in school. I don't speak my own language very well, which is something still unfortunate. And then the person says, I wish I had an accent. And I'm usually very polite. I'm very polite most of the time because of the way I was brought up. But something in me wanted to scream, of course you do. You do have an accent. You have an accent. It's not default. There's no default way of speaking. And then other ways of speaking are deviations from that default. You have an accent. What I really wanted to say, but I think I said something like, yeah, okay, I just want to get back to my hotel room or something like that. But it was, what I really wanted to say was, of course you have an accent. And you see, maybe that event is a microcosm, a small case study of what, of the struggles, historical struggles to name whiteness as this universal tendency to seek default ground, foundational spaces, and name it for itself. And every other thing becomes a strain away from that defaultness, a negative space, wanting to come back to the foundationalism of whiteness. My reaction wasn't the first, of course. There have been many reactions and responses to white foundationalism. I would call in the Combahee River Collective, which is a Black feminist lesbian socialist organization in the United States, which in the 70s actually is credited with creating the terms or the term identity politics. Many people don't realize this, that identity is a relatively new concept. Not the word maybe, but the way it's used today, that it wasn't always that way, especially in the 70s when Black feminists insisted that white feminists were not giving them their due. This is where other concepts, related concepts like intersectionality derives. That look, we have experiences. We don't want to be, we don't all want to march under the banner of feminists. We insist that you understand the complexity of where we are coming from. And so this is the way that identity became part of our lexicon, part of our ways of speaking about the world. The Identity Project took off as a way of naming white foundationalism, as a way of saying, no, you have an accent as well, right? You are just as situated. In fact, you know what we're going to do? We're going to call all knowledges situated knowledges. There is no universal knowledge. We reject right out of the gate any claims to foundationalism, any claims to universalism. And hence, identity became the banner, a theorizing of the positionality of minorities, a way of saying to ourselves, you have the same experience as I do, let's march together. Let's call out the negative treatments of patriarchy, of xenophobia, of sexism, of apartheid. Let's insist that there are other ways of being in the world. And so the project of critique was foundational to identity politics, to identity. You know what critique does well is to call out, is to say, yeah, something's happening here. We are being treated unfairly. We insist that we have our equal due and we want to be treated fairly. So the interrogations of patriarchy, the interrogations of capitalism, the interrogations of these massive systems of oppression derive from these very, very precious contributions that we now steadily know as identity politics under the project of identity. But you see, nothing exists in the world that doesn't exist in tension with other things. And anytime you thrust your arm into the world reacts or responds. There isn't some neutral way to respond that doesn't have its own shadows as well. And I think what I'm getting to here is that even the project of identity has its own shadows. Notice that it has been foundational to how minorities have lived in a majoritarian world, in a world that insists that there is only one way to be alive, a monoculture of mind. Identity was our way of saying, no, we have a voice, we have experiences, we have a place. And yet, the nature of critique is such that it takes on the attributes of that which it wants to call out. Such is the nature of an entangled and processual and relational universe. That once I interact with something, or to use the terms of Karen Barad, to interact with something, we take on those features. We take on some of those properties. So critique, identity politics needed to become the system in order to call out the system. It needed the same axiomatic, epistemological, ontological, spiritual, cosmological, mythological, archetypal. It needed the same place-making lexicon, the same conceptual order. It needed the same arrangement of bodies in order to call out the mistreatment of minoritarian bodies. So this was the Faustian deal of resistance. Faustian deal of resistance. We had to situate ourselves in terms that are intelligible to a majoritarian culture. We had to situate ourselves as automatons. We had to take on the attributes of modernity. We had to become individuals, individual selves. And in doing so, we had to do away with some of the magic that is part of the world. The magic like something moving and something haunting a museum. Critique can only get us so far, you see. While vital, it's still encased within the order that it's trying to rehabilitate. And so that this tells me that identity is in a sense, the processual abandonment or the abandonment of our processual carnality in order for us to have a place in a stabilized or stabilizing world of modernity. So the strategy of identity, as these movements saw it, the strategy of identity is the rent we pay to live in a majoritarian world. Identity is how we pay rent. It's how we stake our claims. It's how we put our foot in the door and insist that we have a place at the table. But again, like I said, this self-referentiality is premised on a notion that we might, for conversational purposes, call a difference from. That is how identity plays out within modernity. I'm different from you, hence I name myself this way and insist on being seen. In an order that privileges this idea of difference from, something is lost. And that is the difference within. That is the order in which difference is not a negative attribute, not a space that needs to be filled, not a gap that exists between already stable bodies, but a processual interlinking of bodies that generates and undoes identity in the self-same instance. It's that flow that Yoruba shamans speak about, that flow that melts masks and vestigial flags and tables and desktops and pixels and colonizer and colonized, that flow that melts together, not forming some kind of uneven heap of oneness. I don't like to speak about oneness, but instead creates differences like the surface of a river or a body of water that is constantly generating patterns. That is this radical world of immanence that is lost by our resistance or not noticed. So here's what I write in my note, and I'd like to share just like I wrote it here, that identity is the factoring out and performative denial of our processual immersion or entanglement with forces that exceed, generate, and undo the boundaries with which we mark ourselves as different from others. That might be a mouthful to take in. It's a factoring out. It's a performative stillness. And it's our only way, it used to be at least, our way of staking our ground. We needed to assert our place. And so it meant we dealt away with the magic that might be involved in being and becoming. And so
Bio, can you repeat that? Can you repeat that mouthful for us?
You want me to?
Yes, many people want you to.
Okay, I'll do that again. Identity is the factoring out and performative denial of our processual immersion or immersion. Pardon my accent. It's the factoring out and performative denial of our processual immersion or entanglement with agonistic forces, unmasterable forces that exceed, generate, and undo the boundaries with which we mark ourselves as different from others. It means that our edges are constantly being trafficked as contraband. It means our edges are never still, as modernity's conceit would have us believe. It means we're constantly being reworked and remade in ways that upset our language and the imperatives of our politics. It means we're constantly flowing, but we do not have rituals or rites of passage or ways of actually paying attention to that. And so I hope that's okay. I'll share my notes later. No problem with that. And so as I say here, that today our politics is almost entirely oppositional. Notice the genealogy of this. It's not that identity politics is bad in the ways that people speak about it. Oh, it's bad, let's get rid of it. No, we need it. We need that critique. I was just reading the news and hearing how Black women, again, were the most generous with their votes in installing Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. And this tells me how Black bodies have been used over and over again ceaselessly consumed but never digested. It's like black and brown bodies of different kinds have been the condition of white modernity. So you can understand where it comes from. You can understand that you can understand the opposition, you can understand the resistance. I think what I'm getting at is the resistance came with costs, as everything does. And it meant losing a bit of our magic. And this is where my concept of tricarcerality comes into play. I spoke about it in the last session. Tricarcerality involves three players: the oppressed, the oppressor, and the conceptual framework that grants meaning to their games or to their interaction. This is where the stockness of identity politics and identity comes in. That the oppressed enacts a politics of recognition. That's identity politics. We're holding the oppressor by his neck and saying, look at us, recognize me, my life matters. And that critique, like I said, is necessary. But you see, the oppressor, hope you know I'm using these terms in a way that isn't stable or stabilizing, and I'm going to get to that soon. You haven't explored the length and breadth of my philosophies yet, so just relax, okay? The oppressor is unable to grant recognition. And this is the dynamic that is at work. The oppressor cannot grant recognition because to do so would be thinking less of himself. It would take away from himself to grant recognition to the externalized, exoticized other. Which is why Zakiya Iman Jackson, and I'll recommend her book very much, Becoming Human, I think is the title of her book. This is why she writes that it's not like the slave masters didn't grant humanity to their slaves. They actually did. They included them into humanity, but they included them in a way that still positioned them at the bottom of the rung, closer to animality. The depraved aspects of humanity was what was granted, so that inclusion became a form of violence in itself. And Alexander Wehelier, another professor, speaks about how that binary of inclusion versus exclusion preserves the oppression, preserves the dynamics. And this is what I mean by tricarcerality, that as we hold the powers that be to account and we insist on being seen and recognized, the powers that be do not have any resources to hold the promiscuity of our bodies. And so it grants and says, yeah, we're gonna put you on our board. Representation matters, I must say, it matters. And at the same time, there are other bodies that are at work that queer and disturb representation, so that representation itself could be representation and inclusion within a paradigm of mastery, within a colonial paradigm. And like I said the other session, I don't want to have a front row seat on the Titanic, and I do not want an equal piece of a carcinogenic pie. So we're trapped then, we're trapped. The oppressor traps the oppressed. The oppressed is trapped by the oppressor, and both are trapped by the conceptual framework that holds them. White modernity is that conceptual framework. Liberal humanism, you know, the dream of Laplace for determinism and control and human supremacy and the perpetuity of human beings. So we need counter-modern efforts. We need a different way, different language, a different way of speaking about these things that upsets it instead of feeds it. Because most of the time we're feeding into the same cyclicity, into the same Hegelian dynamic of stuckness. It's like using red paint to mask a red wall. So where do we find the counter-modern? Let me give an example. And I wish I had a picture of this guy. Donald Trump. I'm sorry if this is feeling very American-centric. Donald Trump comes to mind. I think many people would say Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a racist. How else would you account for the things he says, the politics of locking children in cages? He is a racist, we would say. Now, I want you to consider that statement for a little bit longer than usual. Instead of dismissing it as, of course, that's obvious, that he's a racist. Instead of doing that, I want you to stay with that statement just a while longer. Donald Trump is a racist. I've seen analysts on CNN speaking with White House spokespersons and saying, the president is a racist. Oh, no, he's not a racist. You haven't seen his heart. And the CNN or MSNBC speakers or analysts or experts do not know how to respond to that. Because, of course, their philosophy is that the idea of racism, or to be a racist, it has to be something from the heart. It's a humanist concept. So it's something essential to the human being. And they say something like, well, we can see the symptoms of his racism. And then the retort is, well, he has Black friends, so yeah, he's not a racist. And it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I want you not to focus on whether it's true or not. I think truth is sometimes the affordance or the luxurious affordance of those who stand erect. And I think our times are inviting us to prostrate. And prostration is the pose or the posture of the fugitive who is stealing away from plantations. And to steal away is to have a different kind of relation with reality, with the world. So I'm not going to emphasize whether it's truth or not truth. I'm not going to emphasize or invite us to seek the veracity of that statement, whether Donald Trump is a racist. What I'm going to ask instead is invite us to think, what is happening here? What bodies or ideologies or discourses inform or make meaning or give meaning to this statement that Donald Trump is a racist? The first one that I have here is this: humanism. Race as a coherent physiological signifier or marker of social difference. Identity as stable, that the subject pre-exists his experience or her experience. My identity is always stable. And then lastly, healing might look something like critique or victory or cancellation or a political majority. Those are some things that are at work when we say, we don't usually talk about them, they're at work when we say that someone is a racist or someone is not a racist. But I think there are landmines when we get stuck there. Because I feel that race is a more than human happening. That race is territorial and nomadic. And that's not that we have race in the sense of being a property of my body, because that would centralize and privilege human bodies above ecologies. and the worlds that make those bodies possible. It's not that race is a property stable in time, stable with identities. It's that race is territorial, ecological, physiological, moving, technological, that we're constantly moving and being deracialized and racialized in ways that our language has not been able to catch up to. This is what I call transraciality. And it's a post-humanist reframe of race, racism, racialization. What it seeks to do is to blast out these conversations from the very, very toxic humanist orbit in which we find ourselves encased in. What we want to do is to attend to flows and matrices and assemblages and libidinal sensuous events instead of atoms, instead of points. We listen to lines of flight. I don't have much time except to say this, that I feel that the assignment of the racist is actually an event in tricarcerality, not a property of the human being or a human being. That it's the network, it's the assemblage that creates the body, just like those things created these aliens that we saw today. It's the network that creates that. Once we lose sight of the atom and we notice the apparatus, not to dismiss the atom, not to say, I'm sure you're saying right now that Bayo, you're basically saying we don't hold those racists to account. We need to hold them accountable. And I know the pain of that in my bones, I tell you. But at the same time, maybe it's the fact, and these are the questions that we're enabled to ask, maybe it's the fact that the ways we respond to our pain proliferates our pain. There are other things that I want to get to, but there isn't time. I'm just going to read something too. I'm just going to read. This might take the next 5 minutes. How do we get rid of whiteness is the title of this piece that I haven't shared yet with anyone. I think in some ways that is the wrong question. How do we get rid of whiteness? Well, it is not wrong in the sense that there is a right question somewhere and that there is a moral order above us that preordains what ought to be the right question and what is self-evidently wrong. I mean this in a rhetorical sense. I mean to say that question usually sympathizes. The question, how do we get rid of whiteness, sympathizes with other considerations that affect us and can unfortunately reinforce our suffering. To ask, how do we get rid of whiteness or how do we dismantle whiteness presupposes we can. That whiteness is an attitude, a belief, perhaps a potentially rectifiable somatic condition. Ultimately, something very human. And so we strategize by designating whiteness as something within the power of the individual to master, to control, to bend. Addressing it from the individual perspective becomes a spectrum of responses and approaches that adopt the language of healing, of inner work, of spiritual transcendence, and possibly escape. Efforts which mostly lead to an infinite cyclicity of terms and policed scripts, locking in the pain for minoritarian bodies and increasing the despair of those people who have been trapped by virtue of their birth in a majoritarian culture. From the collective perspective, agency is invested in the systemic. In Supreme Courts and legislative houses, what we imagine we can do is that we can legislate whiteness out of existence. We can pass a bill, we can get rid of it, or we can install a post-racial president. But if we begin from the premise that whiteness is more than human, that it is memory, that it is alchemized in bacteria and bacterial biofilms, that it dwells in roots and tendrils, airborne with dust, living in unearthed bones, lingering in archetypes, a god asleep by the temple raised to worship him, the haunting absence of a nomadic Neolithic mother, holding her child safe from a storm in a cave, secreted in fecal deposits, caca, adrift with tender wood, a matter of traumatized land cuts and phantom trees haunting their charred stumps. If we think of whiteness not as white persons, but as a murmuration of bodies and networks that is always more than human, then new questions and responses suddenly feel possible, erupting from a post-humanist space. You might hear this and read this as an effort to downplay the troubles and occlusions and pain that the trope of whiteness has enacted and still does. What's that word again? Bypass. Yes, you might say that it excuses the racist instead of dealing him a fatal blow and damning him to hell. You might say that it dishonors your experience, your trauma, the suffering of our people, the zombification of our bodies, and the glorification of white bodies. I will hope instead that you come to see that I need to outthink whiteness, that decoloniality is not the denial of exclusion or the wholesale adoption of inclusion, but the reworking of where we are so that other kinds of moves are suddenly intelligible. If I capture my enemy within a concept of evil, both of us are detained in an arrangement of eternal opposition. If I vanquish my enemy in a game of sides, I have lost a part of myself. For you see, my ancestors and my children live in the cells of my oppressors. My decoloniality is a call to withdraw my plea for inclusion, to deny whiteness its ironic quest for transcendence by dissociation. Instead of how do we get rid of whiteness, which now seems hubristic, and privileges doing something above something doing, we are suddenly immersed in a radical order of immanence. We can then ask questions like, what can we touch? What is whiteness becoming? How is our pain locked into the ways we respond to pain? How do our analysis and identity categories entrap us in repeatable cycles that do not tell us what is emerging? How are white people changing? Which comes first, the offense or the politics that makes the offense intelligible? Let me end this way. I don't know what identity wants to be, what race might want to mutate into, what whiteness and might want to become. But I hear the sound of music and drumming not too far from here. And I wonder what's playing. And I wonder if these old feet might dance. Thank you. And I will share these notes with us and write some of the concepts that I haven't been able to capture because of time. I will share with all of us.
Thank you, Bio. So I'll take a deep breath. Remember to exhale it. If there's a gesture of thanks that you want to offer to Bio now for those words, offer whatever that is to you. Bio, I welcome you to scroll through the images to receive the gratitude, which is a very important part of this.
That was very difficult to get through, more difficult than I anticipated.
You did
There's a
good.
lot more to share, yeah, but
Yeah.
thank you all. Thank you all.
And you know, just a quick note that whiteness is highly adaptogenic, has become a subsistence hunter and knows how to use even decolonial frameworks to stay alive and stay in power. So I welcome all of you to anticipate that as you integrate these words and notice the ways that even beyond bypassing, which has its own limitations, to really investigating ourselves, to ask that question of how might whiteness use this framework to stay alive, to adapt, to stay in power. And I pray you can do that in a gentle way for your body and your spirit. Okay, we are close. I'm going to pass it to Erin or Karen to guide us through a few announcements, and then we will say goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Jordy. I'm going to kick us off. We have important announcements. This is particularly for folks who have been trouble getting MailChimp emails. This is just a repeat of stuff we've been putting in the MailChimp emails, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows. The first thing is, if you have questions for Bio, and be silly if you didn't, there are opportunities for kinship group meetings to meet with Bio. There is a Google spreadsheet where people can sign up for a slot. That link is going out in the MailChimp emails. It's in a Mighty Networks post that I posted last night. And then I'm also gonna, right after this ends, I'm gonna put it on the course website. So if you want your kinship group to have a smaller group meeting with Bio, please sign up for one of those slots. And if you are not part of a kinship group meeting or you have trouble making one of those slots, I will pass it to Erin for another option.
Yeah, so we realized that it's an interesting juggling act to get people into smaller groups in conversation with Bio. And so in addition to the Bio with a set of kinship groups meetings, we're also going to set something up akin to office hours, but we're calling it Tea Time and Monsters with Bio. So we'll send out a way, it'll be a sign up again, so up to 30 people. So I'll send out that in the follow-up email as well.
Okay, we've gotten a lot of interest in the Bakita project, and we are finally ready to begin. We will be having a disorientation on Monday, the 23rd of November at 10:30 p.m. midnight. So a couple hours later than when class started today. If you are interested in the Bakita project, it is mandatory that you either attend the disorientation or watch the recording of it. And after you attend or watch the recording, we will have an opt-in form so that it is very clear who is in and is committing to the first phase of this project. Yeah, if you have questions, email course team, and the Zoom link and information about that is on the course website. Other upcoming events, we have 2 upcoming Agoras. There's one tomorrow. Tomorrow's Agora is for Africans and African descendants and folks in the African diaspora, starting at 10:30 p.m. tonight. And then we have a more recently scheduled Agora for white identified bodies or people of European ancestry, and that will be on Tuesday, December 1st. And the Zoom links for both of those are in the MailChimp emails and on the course website.
Yeah, a couple more things. I've been trying, I know that it's a lot, so I've been trying to organize stuff to make it accessible, and I've created a couple of new pages on the website, and one of them is like all the specific exercises and invitations because they can get so lost in all the words. And that's also posted on Mighty Networks, and I'll include it in the post live session mailing. I also created a page for live session libations. So if you create something as a result of these, send it to me in an email and I will put that up, and it'll be just like a general harvest. It's a little more curated than Mighty Networks. And the last thing is that I know people are still not getting the MailChimps. And so I created a post in Mighty Networks. I know not everyone is there, that has links to all of the emails that we send out. So if you don't get an email 2 days before a live session, 2 hours before a live session, and then 2 days after a live session, just check there and you can find all of the important stuff that we're trying to get out to you. And then the last thing is that we're going to close the signup.com for the kinship groups, because it feels like that's kind of, over kinship group, or you're having issues with your kinship group. I would say Mighty Networks is the best place to try to organize that now. Just put a shout out, or there's an open kinship group called the Sassy Salmons. They'll take you in. And the last thing that I want to say is I saw all your chats about changing the design of these sessions so that there's time to integrate and respond to what Bio is saying and not putting that at the end. We heard that, and we'll just see what we can do. We'll try our best. I know it's important to integrate, like that feels these sessions are so big. So please do what you need to do to integrate all of this for yourself. And the care team is here. There's been a lot of care team need today, and on call this week is Komen, Eileen, and Linda, and you can always email us at careteam@biokamalafi.net. So we're here for you. Okay. Música.
I think we just say bye now.
Okay.
Música.
Bye, everyone. Yeah, take care of yourself. Drink some tea. Shake it out. Take a nap. Go outside. Whatever you need to do to be well. And we'll see you soon.